And we return to Pokemon Red, Blue and Yellow versions one last time. We're currently at 5 badges with 4/5 of the Pokédex completed. I gained access to Saffron City last time but never entered it, but now it's time to do so. But there's a bit of a crisis as the place is crawling with Team Rocket, who have taken over the huge building belonging to the Sylph Company. Up first in the southeast corner of town is a house belonging to Mr. Psychic, who reads my mind and knows to give me TM29 containing the very good move Psychic. But these rockets are an issue as they're blocking the door to the Saffron Gym. However, I can see a second building marked Gym next to it. This is the Fighting Dojo, once in competition to be the city's main gym, but lost as Saffron Gym's psychic types destroy their fighting types. There are 4 trainers going north, all black belts. The first one has a level 31 Machop, Mankey and Primeape. The second one has a level 32 Machop and Machoke. The third black belt has just a single level 36 Primeape that gets Mew to level 36. The fourth black belt has a level 31 Mankey that gets Dratini to level 25, a second Mankey and a Primeape. That just leaves the leader, the Karate Master, in the back. He has a level 37 Hitmonlee and level 37 Hitmonchan that gets Tauros to level 31. Instead of taking his dojo's sign, he offers me one of his rare fighting Pokemon. I can choose between Hitmonlee or Hitmonchan, and I choose the one I like more, Hitmonchan. I honestly can't explain why I find Hitmonchan cool. When I look at it, I feel calling it cool is a bit of a stretch, and yet I still think it is. It's one of my favourite fighting types, and I was good it didn't turn up in Pokken. Come on, he's a boxer and could have borrowed some of Steve Fox's moves. It was so obvious. With that little distraction out of the way, I can see that the rocket guarding the Sylph Company is sleeping, so I just walk on in. But first, let's quickly cover that in red. I get TM29 and take on the Fighting Dojo. I defeat the first black belt, the second one, the third who gets Pidgeot to level 32, and the fourth who gets Dratini to level 25. I take on the Karate Master and defeat him. When given my choice, I take Hitmonlee. I like Hitmonlee, just not as much as Hitmonchan. I think what helps is that even though Hitmonchan is very what the hell is that supposed to be when you look at it, you can still tell it's a boxer. I don't really get any sort of information when I look at Hitmonlee. I'm still not sure what it actually is. But I still would have liked to see it in Pokken too. I know people hear the Lee part of its name and would think it should take moves from martial law, but when I look at its leg movements, I feel being a capoeira fighter and borrowing moves from Eddie Gordo would fit more. With that done, I go into Sylph Company. And now for yellow, which will be very quick. I get TM29 and battle the Fighting Dojo. Aside from the Primeapes being given Rage, all their Pokemon are the same. So I take out the first black belt, the second black belt, the third who gets Dratini to level 24, and the fourth. I defeat the Karate Master, getting Dratini to level 25 and Venusaur to level 33. It doesn't matter which of the two I take, but since I like Hitmonchan more, I take another of them. Then it's into the Sylph Company. And back to blue. The Sylph Company is the biggest dungeon in the game, and even with the guide, my first time through was incredibly confusing. I eventually found out the quickest way through it, but since I'm aiming to defeat every trainer and get every item, we're going to be here a while. The first floor is empty, so I go up the stairs to the second. I first go south and take on the trainer marked A, then west a little and south between the tables for trainer B, then east to battle trainer C. I can't reach anywhere else on this floor yet, so I then go up the stairs to floor 3. Trainer A is a rocket grunt with a level 25 Golbat, Zubat that gets Dratini to level 26, second Zubat, Raticate and third Zubat. Trainer B is a second rocket grunt with a level 29 Cubone and Zubat. Trainer C is a new one, a scientist. Several Sylph Company employees have defected to Team Rocket. This first one has a level 28 Magnemite, Voltorb and Magneton. Then it's up to floor 3. This floor just has the one rocket to the south for now before I go up to the 4th floor. This room is just filled with teleporters and I want to clear out everything I can get without them first. The rocket on this floor has a level 28 Raticate that gets Dratini to level 27, a Hypno and a second Raticate. We can also see the odd Sylph employee held hostage with no idea what to do. But that's all, and floor 4 is next. I first head south through the door to face Rocket A, then back out and southwest to battle Rocket B before I go up to floor 5. The first rocket has a level 28 Ekans, Zubat and Cubone. The second rocket has a level 29 Machop and Drowsy who gets Tauros to level 32. Floor 5 now. I first take a couple steps right to battle the rocket marked A, then west a little and south into a room for trainer B. Back out and west some more to inspect the right plant for a hidden item. West more for trainer C and then all the way south for trainer D. I ignore the item I can reach for now and go up to floor 6. Rocket A has just the one level 33 Hypno. In the room in the middle are some company reports giving me little tips like telling me about trade evolutions. Trainer B is a juggler, don't know what this guy is doing here. He's got a level 29 Mr. Mime and a Kadabra that gets Dratini to level 28. Inspecting the right plant gets me a hidden elixir. Trainer C is another scientist with a level 26 Magneton, Coughing, Wheezing and Magnemite. Then finally Rocket D, just a single level 33 Arbok. Up to floor 6. I first go south to fight Trainer A, then south through another room for Trainer B on the other side. Going west and then north takes me to Trainer C and an item before I go to floor 7. Rocket A claims to be one of the 4 Rocket Brothers, as if every single one in the game isn't exactly the same. He's got a level 29 Machop and a Machoke that gets Tauros to level 33. In the middle room we have a hostage panicking for his life and the woman next to him mocking his fear. What an asshole. One says Sylph is probably being targeted for the Pokemon products they make. Rocket B has a level 28 Zubat that gets Dratini to level 29, a second one and a Golbat. And then Scientist C has a level 25 Voltorb, Coughing, Magneton, Magnemite and a second Coughing. Then it's floor 7. I head south a few steps for Trainer A, then go west into a room where I can reach Trainer B. Back out and all the way south, west and north to find Trainer C and an item before I go up to floor 8. Rocket A has a level 29 Cubone and a second one that gets Dratini to level 30 for getting Leah for Slam. That's not all, as Dratini also evolves into Dragonair. Dragonair is one of those evolutions that just overshadows the previous one. Dratini was cute and Dragonair stays it, but also becomes more cool and majestic, which lets it appeal to so many more people. I've seen many who think Dragonair is the best of its line and overshadows its final stage. I myself am a bit more torn on that, there are parts I like about both of them. Really, Dragonair has the same issue I have with other pseudo-legendary middle stages like Pupitar and Metang, which is just how tedious they are to get to their evolution levels. I get it, but the highest levels and need the most XP per level can get a bit much. Rocket B has a level 26 Raticate, Arbok, Coughing and Golbat that gets Dragonair to level 31. Then there's Scientist C with a level 29 Electrode and Mug. The item here is a Calcium before I move on to floor 8. To the east is Trainer A, then all the way south and west a little is Trainer B. North all the way from there is Trainer C, and then I'm on to floor 9. Trainer A is another Rocket with a level 26 Raticate, Zubat, Golbat and Rattata. Trainer B is a second Rocket with a level 28 Wheezing that gets Dragonair to level 32, a Golbat and a Coughing. Then finally a Scientist with a level 29 Grimer and Electrode. Floor 9 next. I first go west and south all the way for Trainer A, then back up, east and south all the way for Trainer B, then go up to floor 10. Rocket A has a level 28 Golbat that gets Dragonair to level 33, a Drowsy and a Hypno that gets Mew to level 37. Trainer B is a Scientist with a level 28 Voltorb, Coughing and Magneton. Floor 10 now. South from the stairs is Trainer A, then west and south is a room with Trainer B and 3 items. Trainer A is a Scientist with a level 29 Magnemite and Coughing. Trainer B is a Rocket with a single level 33 Machoke that gets Dragonair to level 34. The 3 items are a Carbos, Rare Candy, and TM26 containing the very good Earthquake. Up to floor 11, and I'm not going to map this bit as all that's available to me is going east and south for a single Rocket. He's got a level 25 Rattata, a second one, a Zubat, a third Rattata, and an Ekans. And that's everything I can do without using the teleporters. First, I also need to return to floor 5, and past the Rocket in the south I can find the card key in this tunnel that allows me to open all the locked doors around here. I need this, as all the teleporters I can reach without also only lead to teleporters that can be reached without it. Starting from floor 2, I unlock the door in the northwest corner to find a woman who is prepared to take me with her before she realises I'm not Team Rocket and gives me the TM36 self-destruct she was going to use on me. In the southeast corner there's another Scientist. He uses a level 26 Grimer, Wheezing, Coughing and second Wheezing that gets Dragonair to level 35. On floor 3, next to the Rocket, I go west through 2 locked doors to find a Hyper Potion and another Scientist. He has a level 29 Electrode and Wheezing that gets Tauros to level 34. Floor 4 and north of the second Rocket is the first door to unlock, leading to yet another Scientist, a single level 33 Electrode. To the west of that Rocket is another door leading to a room with a full heal, escape rope and a max revive. Floor 5 and the locked door in the middle just leads to some dude without much interesting to say. In the northwest corner next to the Scientist, the door leads to just a protein. South of that one is a door that leads to TM9, Takedown. On floor 6 there's one door in the southwest that gets me a HP up and an X accuracy. In the middle of floor 7 I can open a door to find just more hostages. On the eastern side I can go through a door for TM3, Swords Dance, then south through another to find another Rocket. He has a level 29 Sandshrew and Sandslash. Floor 8 has a door in the middle west with another hostage and a teleporter. Floor 9 has 2 doors in the eastern side that when opened creates a shortcut that saves you about 5 seconds. But in the south there's a door going west to a nurse that will allow me to rest here for free. Very convenient. Now I don't have to keep triple speeding out to the Pokemon Center. I missed an item but I'll get it after I'm done. North of her is another door leading to a Rocket. This one uses a level 28 Drowsy, Grimer that gets Dragonair to level 36, and Machop. The teleporter near him is very important, but first I open the last door on floor 10 to find another hostage. I take that teleporter on floor 9 back to the room on floor 3 with the scientist and hyper potion I opened. Then in the room east of that, I take the teleporter to reach an otherwise inaccessible area of floor 7. And guess who's waiting for me? It's Blue. Somehow he got all this way without a card key. He somehow knows I'm Team Rocket's #1 enemy and has camped out here waiting for me to show up for a battle instead of helping out. Priorities. Blue still has only 5 Pokemon in his team and starts with his newly evolved Pidgeot, now level 37. I Thunderwave it and surf it to death. His Gyarados is next, now level 38, and my Speedy Electrode's Thunderbolt destroys it in one shot. Level 35 Growlithe next and Dragonair's Surf takes it out. Then comes the newly evolved Alakazam, now level 35. I have Mew take it out with Mega Punch. All that remains is his fully evolved starter, Venusaur at level 40. My Fearow easily takes it out with a couple Drill Pecks, reaching level 41. He considers me ready for Giovanni and decides he's going to take on the Pokemon League. He leaves, letting me finish the job here considering I've already done 95% of the work. I can talk to the hostage in this room, who is so thankful for me showing up to save him after being stood for hours next to Blue refusing to shift his ass, that he gives me the game's only Lapras. I've never used a Lapras before, but I've always been very fond of it. Being the first Pokemon outside of Meowth to speak in the anime made it very memorable. And then there was Ashers, yet another one that felt off-brand for him to own that early on. The Orange Islands were my favourite part of the anime as a kid, and Lapras being such a big part of that, being their transport, helped it grow on me a lot. Plus it's a dinosaur, that alone makes it cooler. I take the teleporter in the south to gain access to the other half of floor 11. I go south to face the final Rocket Grunt in not just this place, but the game. He has a level 32 Cubone, Drowsy, and Marowak that gets Dragonair to level 37. I open the final door next to him and find Giovanni threatening the company's president. He threatens me to keep out of it and starts a fight. Giovanni starts with a level 37 Nidorino. A couple Surfs do it. This is followed by the Kangaskhan at level 35, which also goes down to some Surfs. Then the level 37 Rhyhorn defeated by a single Surf. His last Pokemon is New, a level 41 Nidoqueen also taken down by 2 Surfs, getting Dragonair to level 38. He's pretty furious and has to give up on the siege of the company, but he makes sure to remind me that he sees all Pokemon as existing only to serve Team Rocket. They all flee and I talk to the president. He's thankful for the rescue and so rich he can reward me with anything. He chooses to give me the Master Ball, the one-of-a-kind item that catches any Pokemon without fail. The first Master Ball I ever had, I wasted on a Ditto because I had no other balls left and I wanted it. You know, scripting this part wasn't anywhere near as stressful as I was expecting. I quite like the Silph Company section. Single-handedly taking on this invasion and clearing out the entire building is pretty satisfying. I just wish Rocket Grunts had more diverse teams. There's only so many of the Rattata, Zubat and Coughing lines I can beat up on. With Team Rocket fleeing Saffron, the other buildings they've been blocking are now available. First is the house in the northwest. It belongs to a family whose daughter adores Pokemon dolls and mimicking people, earning her the nickname Copycat. She's upstairs with all her dolls and the Super Famicom playing Mario Mario. I didn't have the internet at the time and that game is Japan only, so I didn't get the reference as a kid. Talking to Copycat will just have her repeat what I'm allegedly saying to her. I forgot something, so I rush to Celadon department store and buy a Pokédoll. I return to Copycat and give it to her in exchange for TM31, Mimic. I then remember to return to the Silph Company and check out the leftmost bed next to the nurse for a max potion. And now to do all that again in red. Floor 2, I defeat the first Rocket, getting Dratini to level 26, the second Rocket, and the Scientist who gets Snorlax to level 34. I defeat the Rocket on floor 3 who gets Primeape to level 34. Floor 4 I take on the first Rocket, getting Dratini to level 27, and the second Rocket. Floor 5 I defeat the first Rocket, the Juggler, get the Hidden Elixir, take out the Scientist who gets Dratini to level 28, and the second Rocket. This time I take the card key first time and get the TM9 and Protein. Back to floor 2 and I get the TM36 and defeat the Scientist behind the door, who gets Dratini to level 29 and Charizard to level 39. Back on floor 3 I open up the doors, get the Hyper Potion and defeat the Scientist. Back to floor 4 and I take on the Scientist behind the door and use the card key to get the Escape Rope, Max Revive and Full Heal. Floor 6 I defeat the first Rocket, the Scientist who gets Dratini to level 30 and evolves it into a Dragonair, and the second Rocket who gets Kingler to level 35. I then get the HP up and X Accuracy behind the door. Floor 7, first Rocket, second Rocket who gets Dragonair to level 31, Scientist, grab the Calcium and open the doors to get TM3 and battle the third Rocket who gets Dragonair to level 32. Floor 8, first Rocket who gets Snorlax to level 35 and has it forget Amnesia for Body Slam. Second Rocket and Scientist who gets Dragonair to level 33 and Primeape to level 35. Floor 9, Scientist, First Rocket, the max potion hidden in the bed, and the second Rocket who gets Dragonair to level 34. Floor 10, Scientist, Rocket, pick up Carbos, Rare Candy and TM26. Floor 11, defeat the only Rocket, then take the teleporter to Battle Blue. I have my Charizard take out his Pidgeot in 2 slashes, getting Dragonair to level 35. Dragonair then uses Surf to destroy Growlithe. He still hasn't evolved his Execute at level 35, and so my Charizard almost takes it out quickly, but it loses a few turns to Sleep and Leech Seed. But when it wakes up, it finishes the job. Dragonair doesn't work on Alakazam and it takes out Kingler, but Primeape gets in first with the Fury Swipes to finish it. I don't have a strong counter to his level 40 Blastoise, so I just race it with Karate Chop and win. I get the Gift Lapras and defeat the final Rocket before taking on Giovanni. Dragonair surfs out Nidorino and then Kangaskhan, reaching level 36. It also surfs out Rhyhorn and almost takes out Nidoqueen, but it gets defeated and my Kingler has to come in and finish the battle. I get my Master Ball reward, and with my new access to the rest of the city, I give Copycat a doll for TM31. And one last time in yellow. Floor 2, First Rocket, Second Rocket, Scientist who gets Dratini to level 26. Floor 3 and defeat the only Rocket. Floor 4, First Rocket gets Dratini to level 27, and then the second Rocket is defeated, getting Dodrio to level 40. Floor 5, First Rocket, Juggler, Hidden Elixir, Scientist who gets Dratini to level 28, second Rocket and get the card key and then use it to get the TM9 and Protein. Then to sweep the previous floors with it again. Floor 2, get TM36 and defeat the Scientist in the corner who gets Dratini to level 29. Floor 3, get the Hyper Potion and defeat another Scientist. This time I use that teleporter and defeat the Rocket in the northwest corner of floor 9 so I can gain access to the nurse, as constant running to the Pokemon Center is now getting tedious. I also get the max potion in the bed. Back to floor 4, defeat the Scientist and get the Escape Rope, Full Heal and Max Revive. Floor 6, First Rocket gets Dratini to level 30 and evolves it into Dragonair. Second Rocket, HP up and X accuracy behind the door, then Scientist who gets Dragonair to level 31. Floor 7, First Rocket, Second Rocket who gets Dragonair to level 32, pick up TM3, Third Rocket behind the doors, Scientist who gets Dugtrio to level 39 and pick up the Calcium. Floor 8, First Rocket who gets Dragonair to level 33, Second Rocket and Scientist. Floor 9 and I take out the Scientist who gets Dragonair to level 34 and the remaining Rocket. Floor 10 and I defeat the Scientist and the Rocket who gets Dodrio to level 41, then pick up the Carbos, Rare Candy and TM26. Then on floor 10 I defeat what is now the final Rocket Grunt who gets Dragonair to level 35. Time to use the teleporters to reach Blue and battle. He starts with his level 38 Sandslash that my Dragonair easily surfs over. That's followed by a newly evolved level 35 Ninetales but also gets surfed over. He's evolved a Cloyster which is now at level 37. I forget it's also an Ice type and send out Venusaur, reducing it to the tiniest bit of health before Aurora Beam takes it down. So I have Pikachu deal a finishing blow, getting Dragonair to level 36. He hasn't evolved his Kadabra yet in this version, which is at level 35. Gyarados takes it out, which just leaves the evolved starter, and since I won both the Pallet Town and Route 22 matches, he evolved it into a Jolteon, which is level 40. My Dugtrio wipes it out with one dig. I then get my free Lapras. The final Rocket before Giovanni has been replaced with one final encounter with Jessie and James. Their Weezing is now level 31, followed by their Arbok and finally Meowth. They blast off one last time to never be seen again in this game. All that's left is Giovanni. He starts with the level 37 Nidorino, but once again Surf brings it down. Then comes his Persian, now level 35. I once again use a few Surfs to defeat it and get Dragonair to level 37. Then the Rhyhorn gets wiped out in a single Surf, and with the Nidoqueen, that's Giovanni's entire team defeated with just one move. I get the Master Ball from the President and give Copycat a Pokédoll for the TM31. Back to Blue, and now I have access to the Saffron City Gym, I take it on. The Psychic Gym is filled with even more teleporters I have to figure out to reach the leader. I start with only one there and battle the first trainer in this gym, my first Psychic. He uses a level 33 Slowpoke, a second one, and a Slowbro. Of the 4 teleporters I take the top left one to reach a second Psychic. This one has a level 31 Kadabra, Slowpoke, Mr. Mime, and a second Kadabra. I take the top left teleporter again to reach a third Psychic. He uses a level 34 Mr. Mime and a Kadabra. I take the bottom left teleporter to reach a Channeler. This one uses a level 34 Ghastly that gets Dragonair to level 39, and then a Haunter. I take the upper right teleporter to reach the gym's 4th and final Psychic. He just has a single level 38 Slowbro. I take the bottom right teleporter to reach a second Channeler. This one uses a level 38 Haunter. I then take the bottom right teleporter again to reach the third Channeler and final trainer before the leader. She has a level 33 Ghastly, a second one, and a Haunter. Now for the leader. From the first teleporter I go top left, bottom right, bottom left, and bottom left to reach Sabrina. She tells her life story about having psychic powers since she was a kid and learning how to bend spoons. If you saw her in the anime first and then reached her in the game, you're probably pretty surprised at how normal she is and her claims of hating fighting. She starts with a level 38 Kadabra. I have my Dragonair Paralyze, and then swap to Tauros, who almost gets taken out by a single critical Psybeam. But I respond with my own critical Stomp to take it down, getting Tauros to level 35 and turning down Learning Leah. Next comes a level 37 Mr. Mime, who goes down in a few surfs, getting Dragonair to level 40. Her third Pokemon is a level 38 Venomoth. It poisons Dragonair, and I send out Electrode to critical Thunderbolt it to death. Her big boss mon is the level 43 Alakazam. I have Dragonair Paralyze it and have Mew defeat it with 2 Mega Punches, the second being a critical. Sabrina gives me my 6th badge, the Marsh Badge. It lets trade a Pokemon up to level 70 obey me. She also gives me TM46 containing Psywave. I teach it to Mew, replacing Transform. To quickly cover this gym in red, I defeat the first Psychic, the second Psychic who gets Dragonair to level 37, the third Psychic, the first Channeler, the fourth Psychic, the second Channeler who gets Charizard to level 40, and the third Channeler before I battle Sabrina again. I start the same with Dragonair paralysing Kadabra and then Snorlax taking it out in one Body Slam. Dragonair reaches level 38 and Snorlax reaches level 36. Dragonair takes out Mr. Mime alone with Surf. I paralyse her Venomoth and have Kingler stomp it to death, getting it to level 36. Finally, for Alakazam, I try to paralyse it once again, but it moves first and knocks out Dragonair. Instead, Snorlax paralyses it with Body Slam and then finishes it off. I get my Marsh Badge and TM46. That just leaves Yellow, and since Sabrina is the only trainer here with a changed team, I can skim over the rest of them again. I take out the first Psychic who gets Pikachu to level 41 for getting Quick Attack for Thunder. The second Psychic is next, getting Dragonair to level 38. Then the third Psychic who gets Gyarados to level 40, the first Channeler who gets Venusaur to level 34, the fourth Psychic, the second Channeler, and the third Channeler before battling Sabrina again. She's been reduced to 3 Pokemon, but their levels have been greatly increased. First is a level 50 Abra. I paralyse it and take it down with 2 slams. Then comes a level 50 Kadabra where once again paralyse and slam does it. Finally a level 50 Alakazam. Paralyse and then send out Pikachu to keep Thunderbolting it down, getting Dragonair to level 39 and Pikachu to level 42. So obviously the Abra and Kadabra are there, as in the anime she first sends out an Abra that evolves and then becomes the only Pokemon she uses. But that would leave a late game gym leader with just 2 Pokemon, so I'm fine with them giving her the Alakazam as well. Now for a bit of side questing. Returning to Route 10, north of the Rock Tunnel Pokemon Center, there's a river I can surf south down. Past the area with the centre, I can get off on land and keep moving south and west to find one last trainer on this route. It's a Pokemaniac with a level 30 Rhyhorn and Lickitung. This guy is standing outside the abandoned power plant, which I enter. This place is a single floor dungeon, but it's a pretty big floor. Many of the items shown here on the map are actually Voltorbs and Electrodes in disguise. First I go as far north as I can, grabbing the first item on the way. I then go east and south a little and west at the fork to find the Pokemon marked A. I then go east all the way, then north and west around this wall, battling Pokemon B and Pokemon C, then grabbing a hidden item in the rubble all the way west. Back at the fork I go west and south, then south of the next fork and east to reach a third item and Pokemon D. I return to the fork and go east, battling Pokemon E and F, then taking the first south to an area with the fourth item and Pokemon G. Back to the fork, I go east to the wall and all the way north and into a room with the 5th and 6th items. Out of the room I go west, north, west and all the way south to battle Pokemon H. I go west some more and north all the way, inspecting one piece of rubble for another hidden item. Then it's west and south a bit more to reach my end goal for this dungeon. The first item is a Carbos. Pokemon A is a level 40 Voltorb. Pokemon B is another Voltorb, while Pokemon C is a level 43 Electrode. The item hidden in the wall is a Max Elixir. While I've had access to Magnemite since Route 10 in yellow, this is my first chance in blue, so I catch one. The third item is TM33 Reflect, and Pokemon D is a third Voltorb. Pokemon E is a 4th one, and Pokemon F is a 5th one that gets Dragonair to level 41. The 4th item is TM25 Thunder, and Pokemon G is a 6th Voltorb. Wild Raichu can be found here, and I catch myself a second to use on a later trade. I also catch myself a rare Magneton. The 5th item is a rare Candy, and the 6th a HP up. Pokemon H is a second Electrode, and the final hidden item is a PP up. With that I can challenge the Pokemon by the exit, the legendary bird Zapdos, who is level 50. Legendaries are always a bastard to catch, but they feel even more frustrating in Gen 1 due to the fact that your ball can actually miss the Pokemon if their catch rate is low enough. However, the upside to that is, at least in my experience, once they actually end up inside a Pokeball, they're pretty much guaranteed to be caught. I don't know if that's how it actually works, but it's what happened with all 3 legendary birds for me. What I basically did was paralyse Zapdos, reduce it to the lowest HP I could without defeating it, and then just keep throwing Ultra Balls while it took out my team. I wound up catching it at around 2 hits from my entire team being defeated. Of the 3 legendary birds, Zapdos is in the middle for me. I think it looks pretty cool, especially from where I remember it most, the old Rocket's Zapdos card. What stopped it making a bigger impression for me is that I don't remember it having a memorable anime role. The film it was in during the early days had it overshadowed by this new Lugia we'd never seen before. But I like it enough that I was disappointed when it was axed from the Pokeball item in Smash between Melee and Brawl. It's a shame I'm not using it in any of my final teams though, because it would destroy most of my late game water opponents. With this place cleared out, I go through the exit next to it and end up back outside. I get my Tauros back after benching it for the Parasect for cut and teach it Thunder with the TM I got in there so that it wouldn't be stuck with an all-normal move list, replacing Tail Whip. I also finally take the chance to catch myself another Nidorino so I can perform the trait of the Nidorina back on Route 11. Now for Red. I take out the Pokemaniac outside the power plant and go inside. I pick up the Carbos, defeat Voltorb A, catch a Magnemite, defeat Voltorb B and Electrode C, then grab the hidden Max Elixir. I pick up TM33 and defeat Voltorb D, Voltorb E and Voltorb F, getting Dragonair to level 39. I pick up the TM25, teaching Snorlax Thunder over Rest, and take out Voltorb G. It's in this place I find the red exclusive Electabuzz and catch it. Electabuzz is a Pokemon I'm fond of when I remember it, but I don't think about it too often. I thought it looked cool as a kid, but I just thought there were plenty of other Pokemon I thought were cooler. Plus I prefer the equivalent exclusive in blue. I do have one anecdote about Electabuzz though. For ages I always added an R to its name and thought it was called Electrabuzz. What taught me I was wrong was getting the old electronic Pokédex toy, where you can get up a Pokemon's entry by typing the name in and being told there was no such thing as Electrabuzz. I get the rare candy, a second Electabuzz for blue and a third one for yellow. I grab the HP up, catch myself a Magneton, defeat Electrode H, pick up the hidden PP up and take on Zapdos. It takes just one reset and I catch it with just my underleveled cut Parasect remaining. With that I leave. No extra messing about this time, so it's straight to yellow. I take out the Pokemaniac one more time and go inside. I get the Carbos and catch myself a level 33 Voltorb, since this is the first chance to battle them in the wild in yellow. I battle Voltorb A and battle a new wild Pokemon that's been moved forward a little in yellow, Grimer. This one I catch is level 33. Grimer's alright. I know it's one of those people take an issue with for just being a blob, but I've never had a problem with it. The only downside to Grimer for me is that it's vastly overshadowed by its evolution in my eyes. I defeat Voltorb B and take on Electrode C, managing to catch it before it self-destructs. I pick up the hidden Max Elixir and find myself Grimer's evolution, Muck, which I catch. I love Muck, it's one of my favourites. Yes, Ash's Muck in the anime is a big part of that. This big disgusting pile of shit that at the same time is overly affectionate. Plus my first time seeing it was the Pokemon League episode where Ash just lost 2 Pokemon to that Bellsprout and had Muck take it out with no issue. I'd missed the episode where he caught it, and so I never knew he had a Muck until that episode, so it made a big impression. Plus I do think its face manages to make it look genuinely tough despite being a purple blob. Muck for Smash, screw your recent fully evolved starter. I get the TM33 and defeat Voltorb D, Voltorb E and Voltorb F. I get the TM25, teaching it to Dragonair over Wrap and defeat Voltorb G. I get the rare candy, HP up, defeat Electrode H, get the hidden PP up and battle Zapdos. This one also takes a single reset, but on the retry I catch it with 2 Pokemon remaining instead of 1. I then leave. Back to Blue and south of the Fuchsia City Pokemon Center, I move south into Route 19 leading to the sea. To start with, there are 2 swimmers near the sea. I start with the one on the left who has a level 30 Tentacool and a Shelder. The swimmer on the right is next and has a level 29 Goldeen, a Horsea and a Staryu. Before I get surfing, I get fishing. Yellow got these earlier, but I can now finally catch a Staryu in blue, followed by a Horsea. I quickly detour to Celadon to get a Water Stone and evolve myself a Starmie. Back to Route 19 and I get surfing south. Right away there's a third swimmer with a level 30 Horsea and a second one. I continue surfing south until I find a 4th swimmer with a level 30 Poliwag and a Poliwhirl. A bit south and west has a 5th swimmer with a level 27 Horsea that gets Dragonair to level 42, a Tentacool, a second Tentacool and a Goldeen. East a while and south takes me to the 6th swimmer who uses a level 29 Goldeen, Shelder and Seaking. Then south down the middle of the route takes me to 4 trainers in a square, First is a 7th swimmer with a level 27 Tentacruel, a second one, a Staryu, Horsea, and Tentacruel that gets Dragonair to level 43. The other 3 trainers are all beauties. The one on the right has a level 30 Goldeen and a Seaking. The one on the south uses a level 29 Staryu, a second one, and a third one. Finally, the one on the left uses a level 27 Poliwag, Goldeen, Seaking, second Goldeen that gets Dragonair to level 44, and second Poliwag. With her defeated, I can then continue west into Route 20. We're now at the most southern areas of the Kanto region. Just continuing west takes me to the route's first swimmer. This guy has a level 31 Shellder and a Cloyster. Just south of him is a second swimmer with a level 28 Horsea, a second one, a Seadra, and a third Horsea. Moving west from him takes me to a beauty using a level 30 Seadra, Horsea, and a second Seadra. West of her is some land containing the western entrance to the Seafoam Islands. But first there's another beauty in the water who uses a single level 35 Seaking. I then go inside. The main gimmick with this dungeon are all the holes leading to the lower floors, the bottom floor containing a fast water current. So I have to use strength to push all these boulders into the holes until I reach the bottom. The first one is just east of the western entrance and I push it north into the hole. No maps this time. Straight north from the entrance and up the stairs is a ladder down to floor B1. But I don't want that one and go east, finding a new Pokemon on the way, Seel, which I catch. Seel is my least favourite Generation 1 Pokemon. Everything about it is unremarkable, even its name. By far the most generic, and the only reason I remember it is because I started considering it the most forgettable Gen 1 Pokemon. Before I thought that, I could never remember Seel. All the way east and down some steps takes me to a second boulder to push into a hole. Also, the encounter rate in this place is ridiculous and I'm too tight to spend money on repels. I then go down the ladder slightly north of this hole. The boulder I drop down is here next to another hole, and so I knock it down that one as well. I return to floor 1 and go down the ladder I passed first. Back on B1, I go all the way south and up some stairs, and then north past the ladder to find the first boulder I pushed down and send it down another hole. It is a pain that I have to go back into the menu to reactivate strength every time I go to a new floor. This isn't even a coming back to this now thing, I hated it even when these were the only games. I then go down the ladder I walk past to floor B2. Southeast and down some stairs I can inspect this one rock for a hidden nugget. I then go down the stairs right next to it back to B1. I go all the way west and all the way north to a ladder back down to B2. From that ladder, going east takes me to my first boulder, which I push down the next hole. I go down the hole myself into the waters of floor B3, but since I still need to push more boulders down, I'm swept down into floor B4. I get onto this one tile of land next to where I end up and inspect the south rock for a hidden Ultra Ball. I then surf north to some more stairs and go up 2 ladders to floor B2. Here is the second boulder I push down and I send it down to B3 as well. Back to B4, I follow the path southwest and go up another ladder to B3. I go up the stairs and follow the path southeast and down some more steps. To the west I can check a rock for a hidden Max Elixir. There are 2 boulders here and I can only push the one on the left down into the hole here, the one on the right is stuck against that wall with no way out. There's also this one I push to reach another one I can push down into a hole. With 4 boulders jammed down there, I can drop down to floor B4 with no current and surf north to find the second legendary bird, Articuno. Articuno was much easier to catch than any of my Zapdos attempts, as it only took out 3 of my Pokemon, and 2 of them were weak to ice anyway. Articuno's fine, but it's my least favourite of the legendary birds. There's nothing particularly wrong with it, but I just find the other 2 more memorable, more impressive, and more legendary looking, if that makes sense. If I don't like them all equally, then one of them just has to be the one I like least. My most memorable Articuno experience was opening one pack of the fossil cards to find both the normal rare and holo Articunos in the same pack. I then surfed to the southeast corner of floor B3 to find a series of ladders leading to the eastern exit. That puts me back onto Route 20 and allows me to explore its western half. Directly south of the entrance is a female junior trainer using a level 30 Tentacruel, getting Dragonair to level 45 where I turn down Dragon Rage, a Horsea and a Seel. I go west to leave the islands behind and find a swimmer. He uses a level 35 Staryu. Northwest of him is a single bird keeper on a tiny bit of bridge in the middle of the sea. He uses a level 30 Fearow, a second Fearow and a Pidgeotto. West some more is a beauty with a level 30 Shellder, a second one and a Cloyster. Just south of her is a second junior trainer with a level 31 Goldeen and a Seaking. Then west a little more is the final trainer of the route, a second beauty using a level 31 Poliwag and a Seaking that gets Tauros to level 36. From there it's just a few seconds going west until I reach the last city of the region, Cinnabar Island. Now to do all that in red. In Route 9 I take down the first swimmer, the second swimmer, fish up and catch a Staryu and a Horsea, then fly to Celadon to evolve myself a Starmie. I take on the third swimmer, the fourth swimmer who gets Dragonair to level 40, the fifth swimmer, the sixth swimmer who gets Primeape to level 36, the seventh swimmer who gets Dragonair to level 41, the first beauty, the second beauty, and the third beauty who gets Dragonair to level 42 before I move on to Eastern Route 20. I defeat the first swimmer, the second swimmer, the first beauty who gets Dragonair to level 43, and the second beauty before I enter Seafoam Islands. Since there are no trainers and only free items, I don't have too much to repeat here. I catch a seal, get the hidden nugget, the hidden ultra ball, and the hidden max elixir. What does happen differently here though is that I find a rare Dewgong, Seal's evolution, and catch one. Dewgong is an improvement over Seal, I think it looks more endearing, but a lot of what I said about Seal still applies, so I'm still not a big fan. I have nothing else to say about it. I also catch myself a rare and incredibly stubborn Seadra here. Speaking of stubborn, Articuno took 5 resets before the bastard got caught. Out to the Western Route 20, I defeat the first junior trainer, the swimmer, the bird keeper who gets Dragonair to level 44, the first beauty, the second junior trainer who gets Snorlax to level 37, and the second beauty before I reach Cinnabar Island again. And one more time in yellow. On Route 19 I take out the first swimmer and the second. There's a new house added here in this version, but I can't do anything yet. I can play the Pikachu's Beach minigame if I have my Pikachu taught Surf from Pokemon Stadium. There's no reward for it, but if this cartridge's save battery is still alive by the time I decide to cover Pokemon Stadium and get my surfing Pikachu, I'll come back and record myself playing the minigame. I take out the third swimmer, the fourth swimmer who gets Venusaur to level 35, the fifth swimmer, the sixth swimmer who gets Venusaur to level 36, the seventh swimmer who gets Venusaur to level 37, the first beauty, the second beauty who gets Venusaur to level 38, and the third beauty who gets Venusaur to level 39 before it's on to East Route 20. I defeat the first swimmer, the second swimmer who gets Venusaur to level 40, the first beauty who gets Dragonair to level 40, and the second beauty then enter Seafoam Islands. In here I catch a Krabby since it's my first chance in yellow. I get the hidden nugget and I also catch a rarer Kingler here. You'd think with how early Ash caught his Krabby in the anime, they'd make the line show up earlier in yellow, not later. I get the hidden Ultra Ball and catch a seal, then get the hidden Max Elixir. Articuno was worse than blue, but better than in red here as it took 3 resets to catch. And in the same spot I caught it, I also get myself a Dewgong. On floor B2, the Slowpoke line are rare encounters and they haven't appeared yet in yellow. I get the 1% Slowbro first and then the 4% Slowpoke a few minutes later. On to Western Route 20 and I defeat the first junior trainer, the swimmer, the bird keeper who gets Venusaur to level 41, the first beauty, the second junior trainer who gets Venusaur to level 42, and the second beauty before I reach Cinnabar Island for a third time. Which I will start exploring with blue as usual. Right next to the Pokemon Center is a large building, the Pokemon Lab. There's a few things to do here, and in the first room going right, an old man wants a Raichu that I trade for an Electrode named Doris, and a woman who wants a Venonat that I trade for a Tangela called Linda. In the third room is a man who wants a Ponyta, but they haven't shown up in this version yet. This room also contains a man who researches Pokemon fossils, and so I give him the Dome fossil I got back in Mount Moon. He's built a machine that can resurrect extinct Pokemon from their fossils and tells me to come back later. On my way out I talk to a scientist in the second room now I have space and he gives me TM35 Metronome. I take a few steps around outside and go back in to find he's already done and he gives me my new Kabuto. Of the 2 fossil Pokemon, I've always liked Kabuto more. First of all, I just really like the fossil thing. I'm a sucker for the game setting something up really early on and then waiting until near the end to pay it off, and the fossils belong to that category. But Kabuto clearly looks out of place with the other Gen 1 Pokemon in a way that feels deliberate. It's still kind of cute, but there is a slight menace to it as if it doesn't belong, and with it being from the distant past, that fits. I always remembered that Orange Islands episode with the island that becomes completely overrun by Kabuto. That was a memorable role for it. I then give the scientist my old Amber and do the same to get myself an Aerodactyl. Aerodactyl's cool, big prehistoric dragon. I get why the anime used it to trigger the introduction of Charizard since, looking at the head, it does like it could be an evil or rival Charizard. Obviously it never managed to gain that prominence and that episode even today is still probably its most famous moment, but it's still cool. I hear it has a terrible move pool though. I wouldn't know since I've never used one, but that's a shame. This island does have a gym, but it's locked. One guy says that the burned out house is a place where scientists will conduct some experiments. Well, allegedly burned out anyway, it looks the same as the others on the outside. I start by going northeast to another room, grabbing a hidden item in the 5th square from the bottom. In that room I grab a second item and go west into another room to check out a switch before going back to the first and up the stairs. 2 steps in and Grimer makes its blue debut, so I catch one. The hidden item is one last Moonstone. The second item is an escape rope. These switches open half the doors on one floor and close the others. I'm not going to point out every use of the switches, just assume I did whenever I needed to go through a new door. On this floor I also find my first Koffing and capture it. I really like Koffing. I like the purple colour scheme with the skull and bones tattoo. I like all the little crater holes that, thanks to the colour, make me think of Kiwi from Dragon Ball. I like its big happy face it always has on. but it's just massively overshadowed by its evolution for me. On to floor 2. I start by going south from the stairs to Trainer A. I go east a bit and south into a room where I can do a bit of reading. I return to the stairs and go northeast into a room where I can read some more, then east some more into a room with the only item on this floor. I then go up the stairs next to the ones I got here from to battle a trainer and get 2 items. I then come back and go up the stairs in the northwest corner. The first trainer I talk to is another new type, the burglar. Being officially abandoned has attracted people who want to go in and root around for stuff to take. These mainly use fire types. This one has a level 34 Charmander and a Charmeleon who gets Dragonair to level 46. The paper I read is a report about the discovery and naming of Mew. The second report I read states that Mew was first discovered in Guyana. The item is a Calcium. I go over the first stairs I mentioned for a closed off area of floor 3. The interesting thing about burglars is that they don't challenge you on sight like the others, you have to talk to them. This one has a level 38 Ninetales. The report up here tells of Mew giving birth to Mewtwo. There's a max potion in the southwest corner and in the northwest a hidden max revive in the rubble. Then it's back to floor 2 to take the other stairs to floor 3. I go all the way east through 2 rooms for an item and then back to the middle. I go south and east battling the other trainer on this floor before I walk off the western ledge to drop down to a new area of floor 1. The item is an iron. On this floor I find a rare muck and catch one. Ponyta also makes its blue debut on this floor and I catch one at level 32. After leaving to heal I go back to the Pokemon lab and trade that Ponyta for a seal named Sailor, and that's all the in-game trades done in blue. The trainer is a scientist who says his mentor used to live here. He uses a level 33 Magnemite, Magneton and Voltorb. I walk off the ledge and drop myself into a closed off area of floor 1 where there's another scientist waiting for me. He's got a level 29 Electrode and a Weezing. I catch myself another Ponyta since I still need to evolve one. South of the scientist is a Carbos and some stairs down to the basement. I go west into this small room where Trainer A and the first item are. All the way west from there is the second item. Back to the stairs and north through a door and all the way has me facing Trainer B. Then I go all the way west grabbing the third and fourth items on the way. Then south into the last room where there's a hidden item in the northwest corner and the final item in the middle. There's a report in the small room stating that Mewtwo is too powerful for them to control. All this effort to cloning Mew. I bet when the Mew glitch was discovered and made public, these people were pissed at how easy it actually is. The first item is TM14 containing Blizzard. I teach it to Mew, replacing Metronome. Trainer A is a burglar with a level 34 Growlithe and Ponyta. The second item is a full restore. Trainer B is a scientist with a level 34 Magnemite who gets Dragonair to level 47 and an Electrode. The third item is a rare candy, and fourth is TM22 Solar Beam. The hidden item is another rare candy, getting me a total of 8. The final item is the secret key, which allows me into the gym. With Dragonair at level 47, I can use my 8 rare candies to bring it up to level 55, evolving it into Dragonite. I get why many feel let down by Dragonite and prefer Dragonair over it, but I've always liked Dragonite. I quite like that the strongest Pokemon outside of the legendaries is so cute and dopey and harmless looking. We have plenty of cool, tough looking pseudo-legendaries later, but I think Dragonite is fine. Not my favourite pseudo-legendary, but I still like it a lot. I just wish that it didn't steal so much of my trainer XP evolving one when it isn't planned to be on 2 of the final teams. And it's a good thing I evolved this one here, as we're soon going to get my final addition to the blue team so I can finally bench this. Before moving on, I still have some catching to do on floor 3. I found a Magmar much earlier but knocked it out trying to weaken it. This time I actually catch it. As the blue exclusive equivalent to Electabuzz, I've always liked Magmar more. The anime does play a part with the iconic battle between Ash's Charizard and Blaine's Magmar, but I think I'd still prefer it regardless. Not many can pull off having a fiery ass for a forehead. I also catch a second one and a third one for trading to red and yellow. Finally, after a long search, I find the rare Weezing and catch one at level 42. So when I said Blastoise was tied for my favourite Pokemon, how many were expecting me to say the other is Weezing? I fucking love Weezing. I don't think part of it is once again James's Weezing in the anime. It was one of the first times seeing a Pokemon and thinking, what the hell is that? I like it though. It's none of those like Magneton and Dugtrio where it's 3 of the pre-evolution combined, but this one makes it better by having the other 2 look like malformed growths to show how fucked and polluted they are. Plus, Koffing looked way too happy. I can relate to Weezing more by also having a default face that makes me look absolutely miserable. For me, the tipping point that started my slow loss of interest in the anime during Hoenn wasn't writing out Misty or the rest of Ash's and Brock's Pokemon, but the loss of Weezing. That felt more wrong than anything else. Also, Smash axed Weezing from the Pokeballs between Melee and Brawl, and that was a morally incorrect thing to do as well. Weezing is the final Pokemon to make up my final blue team, which is Blastoise, Fearow, Mew, Electrode, Tauros and Weezing. With all that done and that key obtained, I enter Cinnabar Gym. But first, Red. I trade the Raichu for Doris, the Venonat for Linda, and hand over the Helix fossil, getting myself an Omanyte. The Omanite's alright. It's kinda cute, but I've just never been in a situation where I'd choose it over Kabuto. What doesn't help is that I'm not a big fan of its evolution either. Overall, I just find it to be the inferior fossil. I hand over the old Amber, get my TM35 and receive my Aerodactyl, then into the Pokemon Mansion. On floor 1, I catch a Koffing, get the hidden Moonstone, catch a second Koffing to trade the yellow, get the Escape Rope and catch a Weezing far quicker than in the game I actually want to use one. On floor 2, I defeat the Burglar, pick up the Calcium and catch a Muck. On floor 3, I defeat the Burglar, pick up the hidden Max Revive, the Max Potion and the Iron. I catch a Ponyta and a second one for trading, which I do for Sailor immediately. Then defeat the Scientist, getting Dragonair to level 45. Dropping down to floor 1, I take out the Scientist and get the Carbos. And for the basement, I get the TM14 and teach Kingler Blizzard over Vice Grip. I take out the Burglar, pick up the Full Restore and defeat the Scientist. I grab the Rare Candy, the TM22, the Hidden Rare Candy and the Secret Key before catching myself a Grimer. I then do a quick bit of leveling, getting Kingler to level 37 and Dragonair to level 47 so I can Rare Candy my way to a Dragonite and bench it to get my full team back. I then take on Cinnabar Gym. But as usual, we have to do it again with Yellow. First, the changed trades here require a Pokemon I've neglected to catch in this version, so I rush back to Route 6 and while surfing, catch myself a Psyduck and a Golduck. The old man is offering a Rhydon named Buffy for that Golduck, meaning I don't actually have to grind one out. Rhydon is just cool. Yeah, it's another Kaiju and it looks quite similar to Nidoking, but it's a Kaiju with a fucking drill in its face. This is one of those Pokemon that it just feels weird to think of as the middle stage post Gen 4. Even over 15 years later, I still automatically think of Rhydon as the end point of the line, even though it's been the middle for more time than it has been the final now. It helps that its later evolution is a complete letdown. The Scientist is trading a Muck named Sticky for a Kangaskhan. The third trade is asking for a Growlithe I don't have. Comparing the rarity of the two, this isn't worth it. I hand over my Dome Fossil and get the TM35. I get my Kabuto and have my old Amber become an Aerodactyl. Pokemon Mansion time. I catch myself that Growlithe I need and get the hidden Moonstone and the Escape Rope. Floor 2 and I defeat the Burglar, getting Gyarados level 41 and teaching it Hydro Pump over Dragon Rage, then get the Calcium. Floor 3 and I defeat the other Burglar and get the Max Potion and Max Revive. I get the Iron and defeat the Scientist before dropping back down to floor 1 and defeating that Scientist, getting Dugtrio to level 40 before I grab that Carbos. And for the basement, I get the TM14 and take out the last Burglar, get the Full Restore, defeat the last Scientist who gets Dugtrio to level 41. I get the Rare Candy, the TM22, the Hidden Rare Candy and the Secret Key. I then hang around until I can catch a Ditto. Yep, this was the place I wasted my first ever Master Ball on a Ditto. I leave and trade my Growlithe to the woman in the lab for a Dugong named Cezanne, then it's into the gym. The way this gym works is that by each trainer there's a quiz machine. Get the true or false question right and I can move on. Get the question wrong and I have to battle the trainer first. I'm gonna ignore the questions and battle them all anyway, but the first question always bothered me. First is that Caterpie evolves into Butterfree. This is a bad question as the answer is true, but Caterpie evolves into Metapod and then Metapod evolves into Butterfree. The wording is just bad. The trainer by this machine is a Burglar with a level 36 Growlithe, a Vulpix and Ninetales. The second trainer has no question and is a Super Nerd with a level 36 Vulpix, a second one and a Ninetales that gets Tauros to level 38. The third trainer is another Super Nerd with a level 34 Ponyta, Charmander, Vulpix and Growlithe. The fourth trainer is a second Burglar with a single level 41 Ponyta. The fifth trainer is a Super Nerd with just a level 31 Rapidash that gets Tauros to level 39. The sixth trainer is a third Burglar with a level 37 Vulpix and a Growlithe that gets Mew to level 38. The final trailer before the leader is one more Super Nerd with a level 37 Growlithe and a Vulpix. And that just leaves the leader, Blaine, who creates yet another overused and abused internet catchphrase. He starts with a level 42 Growlithe that I have Mew Blizzard and Mega Punch. He follows it with a level 40 Ponyta that falls to a single crit Blizzard. Level 42 Rapidash is next and my constant Mega Punches have Blaine use up 2 of his super potions trying to survive them. It doesn't work and the win gets Mew to level 39. Last is the level 47 Arcanine. I try to take it down with Mew, but Blaine still has a super potion. Mew is weakened and I just can't damage it fast enough. Mew falls and so Blastoise comes out with the bubble beams. Blaine runs out of super potions and the Arcanine goes down. Blaine grants me the Volcano badge and gives me TM38 containing Fire Blast. And now for red. I take out the first burglar, the first super nerd who gets Kingler to level 38, the second super nerd, the second burglar who gets Kingler to level 39, the third super nerd, the third burglar, and the final super nerd who gets Kingler to level 40. With Blaine, I start with Primeape to try and bump it up a few levels. Growlithe goes down from 2 Karate Chops, and with Ponyta I keep using that move while Blaine burns through super potions. Taking it out gets Primeape to level 37, forgetting Leah for Seismic Toss. I use a mix of moves to the Rapidash and just barely win before Primeape is taken out. It falls to the Arcanine though, so I try Snorlax. Snorlax then misses 2 Thunders in a row while getting burned, so it had no chance. Then I just have Kingler finish the match, getting me my badge and TM38, which I of course use on Charizard, overwriting Rage. And that just leaves yellow. All of Blaine's trainers retain the same Pokemon here. This time you must at least answer the quiz machines before you're allowed to challenge them. I take out the first burglar who gets Dragonair to level 41, the first super nerd, the second super nerd, the third burglar who gets Dragonair to level 42, the third super nerd, the third burglar, and the fourth super nerd. Blaine's overworld sprite has been made more fitting rather than the balding, overweight, middle-aged man sprite he used in Red and Blue. Blaine's team has been shrunk by 1, but the levels have been hugely increased like with Sabrina. First level 48 Ninetales. My Dodrio almost defeats it, but Confuse Ray gets it taken out first, so my Gyarados finished it. Then comes a level 50 Rapidash that falls to 2 Bubble Beams and gets Gyarados to level 42. Finally, a level 45 Arcanine that also takes 2 Bubble Beams. Notice something about Blaine's anime-inspired team? Ninetales is the only Pokemon here that he used in the anime, his other 2 were a Rhydon and a Magmar. Magmar is especially strongly associated with Blaine thanks to its battle with Ash's Charizard. Thing is, Pokemon Yellow was released only a month after the episode in which Blaine first appears, so throughout development they would have had no idea what Blaine's team would have been, so they just had to guess. It does kind of show how quickly they decided to make and release Yellow to cash in on the anime's success. Before moving on, we got some trading to do. First, Red and Blue trade Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan to register them on each other, then Kabuto and Omanyte for the same reason, and then a Magmar for an Electabuzz. I then send Hitmonlee from Red to Yellow along with the Omanyte. I trade my third Magmar for a Seadra so I don't have to track one down or evolve one in Blue. Then with Red and Yellow I trade the third Electabuzz for the Rhydon. Finally I send the second Koffing over to Yellow. Cinnabar's done with, so I get surfing north into Route 21. This is just a straight line north with 10 trainers on the way. First there are 2 swimmers on the same row of tiles. The one on the right uses a level 32 Poliwhirl, a Tentacool and a Seadra. The swimmer on the left has a level 33 Staryu and Wartortle that gets Mew to level 40 and teaches its sidekick over Pound. To the northeast is a third swimmer using a single level 37 Starmie. North of him is a platform with 2 fishermen. The southern one has a level 33 Seaking and a Goldeen. The northern one has a level 31 Shelder and a Cloyster. North some more are 2 trainers close together. The one on the right acts as if him swimming is a ludicrous idea, and that's because he's a cue ball. He uses a level 31 Tentacool that gets Tauros level 40, a second Tentacool and a Tentacruel. The one on the left is another swimmer with a level 33 Seadra and a Tentacruel. Northwest of that is another platform with 2 more fishermen. The southern one uses a full team of 6 Magikarps, starting a series-wide trend. The northern one has a level 28 Seaking that gets Tauros level 41, a Goldeen, a second Seaking that gets Electrode to level 41, and a third Seaking. And from there I go north a little more to reach Pallet Town. I've circled the entire Kanto region, visited every town and city, and returned to where I started. Let's quickly do the other 2 versions first. In red I defeat the first swimmer and get Primeape to level 38, the second swimmer, the third swimmer who gets Primeape to level 39, the first fisherman, the second fisherman, the cue ball who gets Primeape to level 40, the fourth swimmer who gets Snorlax to level 38, the third fisherman, and the fourth fisherman who gets Snorlax to level 39. I then return to Pallet Town. And once more in yellow. The first swimmer who gets Dodrio to level 42, the second swimmer, the third swimmer who gets Pikachu to level 43, the first fisherman, the second fisherman who gets Venusaur to level 43 and turns down growth, the cue ball, the fourth swimmer, the third fisherman, and the fourth fisherman who gets Dragonair to level 43. Then back to Pallet Town. Back to Blue and I return to Viridian City where it turns out the gym leader has returned. It's that thing I mentioned with the fossils. Tease me with something at the beginning and only let me reach it near the end. Love it. Even the greeter doesn't know who the gym leader is, but they do have the arrow tiles from the Rocket Hideout, which is a pretty big hint. I take the arrows to the left to take on the first trainer of this gym, a Tamer. He has a level 39 Arbok and a Tauros that gets Mew to level 41. I take the next arrows up to battle a black belt using a single level 43 Machoke. I go down and follow a side path to reach a male cool trainer with a level 39 Nidorino and a Nidoking that gets Mew to level 42. The arrows then take me to the start, so I go northwest into the middle. There are 3 trainers here. First is another cool trainer with a level 39 Sandslash and a Dugtrio that gets Fearow to level 42. Then there's another black belt with a level 40 Machoke that gets Blastoise to level 42 where it turns down Skull Bash, and a Machoke. The third one is a tamer using a single level 43 Rhyhorn. Right of the last cool trainer I battled is a Revive, and north of it is a third cool trainer also with a single level 43 Rhyhorn. I then follow the path around the eastern wall and then west to find the last trainer in here, a black belt with a level 38 Machoke, a Machop, and a second Machoke that gets Tauros to level 43. Moving around him, I reach the gym leader and, surprise surprise, it's Giovanni. I already knew from the anime first time. He's been planning to regroup Team Rocket from here. Shame for him, he built his gym around the element my starter defeats. He begins with a level 45 Rhyhorn that I have Tauros slowly stomp to death. Next is a level 42 Dugtrio that Tauros also stomps to death, much quicker. Next comes a level 44 Nidoqueen and I give Weezing a go. I forget Nidoqueen is also poison, so that was a mistake. I swap to Mew and use Psychic to wipe it out. Then comes the level 45 Nidoking that goes down in 1-2. Finally a level 50 Rhydon that whiffs its Horn Drill, falling from 2 Psychics and getting Mew to level 43. Giovanni's a graceful loser this time and grants me my final badge, the Earth Badge. This one makes all Pokemon from trades obey me. He also gives me TM27, Fisher. The loss has completely shamed him though, and he claims Team Rocket is disbanded and that he will dedicate his life to Pokemon study. Not that either of those statements will last. But now for Red. I defeat the first Tamer, the first Black Belt who gets Alakazam to level 42 where it turns down Reflect, the first Cool Trainer, the second Cool Trainer who gets Snorlax to level 40, the second Black Belt, the second Tamer, get the Revive, then defeat the third Cool Trainer and the third Black Belt. Then there's Giovanni. Kingler defeats the Rhyhorn with one Bubble Beam and gets Snorlax to level 41 where it turns down Harden. His Dugtrio manages a dig, but Bubble Beam wrecks it too, which gets Kingler to level 41. For the Nidoqueen, Primeape gives her 4 critical Karate Chops in a row. The same thing happens to his Nidoking, and for Rhydon I try making Primeape do it, but it gets defeated so I have Alakazam finish it with Psychic. I get my badge and TM27 and I'm on my way. Once more in yellow. First Tamer, first Black Belt, first Cool Trainer who gets Dugtrio to level 42, second Cool Trainer, second Black Belt who gets Dodrio to level 43, second Tamer, grab Revive, third Cool Trainer and third Black Belt who gets Gyarados to level 43. Giovanni's levels have been bumped up and this time he starts with the Dugtrio, now level 50. Hydro Pump misses so I have Gyarados Bubble Beam it which still just takes 1 hit. His Rhyhorn has been replaced with his Persian at level 53. I have Dugtrio almost defeat it with some digs, but it gets a critical slash that removes all of its health and then it takes most of Venusaur's, but Body Slam finishes it off. His Nidoqueen is now level 53 and takes a few Razor Leafs to bring down. The Nidoking is now level 55, but Dodrio's Drill Peck is very good. Finally, the Rhydon is now at level 55. I forget it's also Rock and Dodrio gets destroyed by Rock Slide. So out comes Dragonair to take it down with a critical Surf. And there's all 8 badges and the TM27 in all 3 versions. Now for that Pokemon League. But first, in blue only, I fly back to Celadon City and return to the game corner to get buying coins. I can buy 50 coins at once and I need 6,500. So that's around 120 purchases on top of the coins found on the floor first time I was here. So a total cost of 120,000. With my 6,500 coins I go next door and use them to buy myself a Porygon. It costs 9,999 coins in the other 2 versions so I can't afford it in those yet. I really like Porygon. When I first got into the series I was fascinated by this, well back then I had no idea what it was supposed to be. But I do love that for a computer generated, man-made Pokemon, it's all blocky because that's what 3D graphics in games were at the time. It's just a shame that considering how not very useful it is, it really isn't worth how hard they keep making it to obtain. It's also a shame about the incident in the anime. I didn't know about it before I had the internet, so I was always waiting for it to show up on an episode only for it to never show. With that out of the way, I return to Route 22 to take on the Pokemon League. But in the same spot I fought at the start of the game, I run into Blue again. He decides he's going to use me as a warm-up. He starts with his Pidgeot, now at level 47. My Electrode takes it out with a single critical Thunderbolt. He next sends out the 6th member of his team he finally obtained, a level 45 Rhyhorn. Blastoise defeats it with a single Bubble Beam. His Gyarados is next at level 45 and once again a single Electrode Thunderbolt is enough. Then comes the Growlithe at level 47 and I keep Electrode out and take it down with 2 Thunderbolts. I keep it out for his level 50 Alakazam and it keeps using turns on Reflect and Recover, but when I reduce it to almost nothing, it finishes Electrode with a Psybeam. So I send out Tauros and just manage it with a few stomps. That just leaves the level 53 Venusaur that goes down from 2 Drill Pecks from Fearow. Even though I won, he says he's ready for the league and I need more practice before he goes off ahead. Let's do that again in red. Once again can't afford a Porygon yet, so here I go straight to blue. He starts with Pidgeot and my Snorlax's Thunder refuses to land for a few turns. By the time 2 Thunders land to finish it, I've used up half of its PP. For the Rhyhorn, it just takes a single Psybeam from Alakazam. The Growlithe is no threat and falls to 2 Bubble Beams from Kingler. Then comes the still unevolved level 47 Execute, which Charizard defeats with a single Fire Blast, getting it to level 41. His Alakazam is next and Charizard is fast enough to get 2 critical slashes in a row to bring it down. That just leaves the level 53 Blastoise. My Snorlax refuses to land Thunder again and gets finished by a Skull Bash, so I send out Primeape and keep throwing out Karate Chops. I get Blastoise to the red but take a Hydro Pump. So Kingler finishes it with a couple stomps and I learn that blue is carrying at least 1 regular potion this far into the game. That just leaves yellow. This time blue starts with the level 47 Sandslash. After the game I had Dugtrio first in my party, I swapped to Gyarados and Bubble Beam it down, getting Dugtrio to level 43. Level 45 Execute is next and Dodrio one-shots it with Drill Peck. Next is a level 45 Ninetales that takes 3 serves while it waits a turn on Raw. I keep Dragonair out for this level 47 Cloyster because I haven't accepted that Thunder is a lazy piece of shit that never wants to hit, so I take 2 Aurora Beams and lose Dragonair. So I just have Pikachu Thunderbolt it out instead, but I also lose Pikachu to a combination of Confusion and Clamp. Venusaur finishes it with Razor Leaf and reaches level 44. He still hasn't evolved his Kadabra in this version at level 50. It falls to 2 Hydro Pumps from Gyarados, leaving just the level 53 Jolteon. A Dig and a Slash from Dugtrio are good enough. With that irritant dealt with, I can finally start the Pokemon League. I once again enter the building on Route 22 where the guy lets me pass since I had the Boulder badge. This lets me enter Route 23, where there's a guy waiting to check my Cascade badge. Moving further north is the guard looking for the Thunder badge and even further north, one for the Rainbow badge. From here I have to surf a bit where the guard checking for the Soul badge is waiting. There's one little bit of land past him where I can find a hidden Max Ether. I present my Marsh badge and keep going until I reach land again. I go east and inspect this one tree for a hidden Ultra Ball. Moving north some more has me present my Volcano badge and past that guard I can inspect this bit of rubble in the grass for a hidden Full Restore. North even more and I can show the final guard my Earth badge and enter the door to Victory Road. I've never liked a Victory Road. Just a boring cave to drag out the endgame when I'm already emotionally prepared for the league. I start by going west a bit and pushing this boulder all the way east and onto this switch to fill in the gap in the floor. I then follow the path it opens north and go west and around to another boulder I can push to reach 2 new items. But to get the second one I have to re-enter the room to reset the boulder, as getting one will block the other. I return to the centre and battle Trainer A, then go down the stairs and northwest to Trainer B and the ladder to floor 2. The first item I pick up is TM43, Sky Attack. Trainer A is a female cool trainer using a level 44 Persian and a Ninetales. I then use my new TM to have Fearow replace Peck with Sky Attack. Trainer B is a male cool trainer with a level 42 Ivysaur, a Wartortle that gets Electrode to level 42, a Charmeleon that gets Blastoise to level 43, and a Charizard. The second item from pushing the boulder is a rare candy, and it's onto floor 2. I start by pushing the boulder to the south onto a switch to open the path slightly northeast. This leads to Trainer A. I go past him and south down the steps and northwest to find the first item here. There's a switch to open the path to a ladder, but no boulder. I can at least battle Trainer B next to the blocked path though. I then follow the other path, east, north, west and north again, getting the second item and battling Trainer C. Then north some more and east gets me to Trainer D and the third item. I then return to Trainer C and go down the stairs east of him. Trainer A is a black belt with a level 43 Machoke that gets Fearow to level 43 where it turns down agility, a Machop and a second Machoke. The first item is TM5, Mega Kick. Trainer B is a juggler with a level 41 Drowsy, a Hypno, a Kadabra who gets Tauros to level 43 and a second Kadabra. Trainer C is a tamer with a level 44 Persian and a Golduck. The second item is a full heal. Trainer D is another juggler with a single level 48 Mr. Mime that gets Fearow to level 44. The third item is TM17 Submission and I go up the ladder to floor 3. I start by going north and east to find Trainer A and the first item, and then get pushing this boulder north and west, quickly going south for the third item and pressing a switch to open the path to the southwest corner. I go down the ladder there for a closed off area of floor 2 before I come back and get up the steps in the middle and follow the path southwest, taking on Trainer B on the way. Down the steps at the end and going west, I take on Trainers C and D, then reach this boulder I push through the hole to drop it down to floor 2. I then follow that boulder. Trainer A is a cool trainer with a level 43 Exeggutor, a Cloister and an Arcanine, while the item next to him is a Max Revive. The second item is TM47 Explosion. Back down to floor 2 there's a Pokemaniac waiting for me with a level 40 Charmeleon, a Lapras who gets Electrode to level 43 and a Lickitung. The rock next to him holds a hidden Ultra Ball. To the east is a Guard Spec, and then south a bit is where I find the final legendary bird, Moltres. Level 50 like the others, this one goes a lot easier. I only lose Electrode before it stays in the ball. Moltres is my favourite of the legendary birds. You can't go wrong with a bird on fire. It was the most memorable of the 3 in the anime too, due to the Pokemon League making it part of their Olympic Torch equivalent and actually making it feel legendary. That was one of my favourite moments where the anime tried to explain why a Pokemon might be in the location you find it in the games. But even apart from the anime, I just think it looks the coolest of the 3 birds. Normally, I mean, not from the original sprites. Back to floor 3, and Trainer B is another cool trainer with a level 43 Parasect, a Dewgong and a Chansey. Then Trainer C is another cool trainer with a level 43 Kingler who gets Fearow to level 45, a Tentacruel and a Blastoise. I do like how in this place the trainers actually have a diverse range of Pokemon between them instead of limiting the same 10 or so between them all. Trainer D is one more cool trainer with a level 43 Bellsprout, a Weeping Bell and a Victreebel who gets Mew to level 44. I push the boulder down to floor 2 and follow it. I use it to press the last switch to reach the other ladder on this floor back to floor 3. I then go north and down another ladder back to floor 2, where I can inspect the rock next to the ladder for a hidden full restore, and then leave to the northern end of Route 23. I then have a pretty pointless statue maze to walk through so that I can enter Indigo Plateau. But first, Red. On Route 23 I pick up the hidden Max Ether, Ultra Ball and full restore before I enter Victory Road. On floor 1 I pick up the TM43 and replace Pidgeot's Gust with Sky Attack, defeat the first cool trainer who gets Kingler to level 42 where it forgets Stomp for Crabhammer, then the second cool trainer who gets Charizard to level 42 before I grab the rare candy and move on to floor 2. I defeat the Black Bell who gets Alakazam to level 43, the first Juggler who gets Charizard to level 43, pick up the TM5, defeat the Tamer, grab the full heal, defeat the second Juggler and pick up the TM17 before I go to floor 3. I take out the first cool trainer who gets Kingler to level 43, then pick up the Max Revive and TM47 and return to the northwestern corner of floor 2. I get the hidden Ultra Ball, defeat the Pokemaniac who gets Snorlax to level 42, use my TM5 to replace Primeape Scratch with Mega Kick, pick up the Guard Spec and catch Moltres with no resets, but losing 4 Pokemon to it this time. Back to floor 3 and I take down the second cool trainer who gets Charizard to level 44 and Primeape to level 41, the third cool trainer who gets Primeape to level 42, the fourth cool trainer who gets Charizard to level 45, then do all that bouldery stuff, get the hidden full restore, leave and reach the Indigo Plateau. And yellow again. Route 23, hidden Max Ether, Ultra Ball and full restore, then into Victory Road. Floor 1, pick up TM43, defeat the first cool trainer and the second who gets Gyarados to level 44 and Dragonair to level 44, teach Dodrio Sky Attack over Peck, then pick up the rare candy and move to floor 2. I defeat the Black Belt who gets Dodrio to level 44, pick up TM5, defeat the first Juggler, the Tamer who gets Dodrio to level 45 where it forgets Fury Attack for Tri Attack, pick up the full heal, defeat the second Juggler and pick up TM17. Floor 3, I defeat the first cool trainer who gets Dodrio to level 46, pick up the Max Revive and TM47 and return to floor 2 for the hidden Ultra Ball, the Pokemaniac, the Guard Spec and once again catch Moltres with no resets and only losing a single Pokemon. Back to floor 3 for the second cool trainer who gets Pikachu to level 44, the third who gets Venusaur to level 45, the fourth, doing the last boulder, getting the hidden full restore and reaching Indigo Plateau. Indigo Plateau has a Pokemon Center and shop before I take it on, but first I have one last grind to get done. In blue I have a Kabuto, Rhyhorn, Seel and Ponyta to evolve. I could just trade the yellow Rhydon over, but I'd already put a lot of time into leveling Rhyhorn so I wanted to see it through. I also teach Kabuto and Seel Surf for grinding in Victory Road. This is Sailor, the traded seal from Cinnabar, and Kabuto I got from Yellow by the way, for that XP boost on trades. I have Sailor and Kabuto Surf while Rhyhorn and Ponyta have to sell for Stomp. It takes 19 minutes at triple speed for something to happen when Sailor reaches level 34 and evolves into a Dewgong. 13 minutes later, Kabuto reaches level 40 and evolves into a Kabutops. While I prefer Kabuto for being cuter, Kabutops is still pretty cool. You can't go wrong with a Pokemon that has scythe hands. Though I've got to say, after seeing the skeleton sprite in the Pewter Museum as a kid, I always wanted to be able to use a skeletal variant. You can stick it up there with the other stuff my child self wanted just because I couldn't have it, along with Venustoise, the Spiral Shelder and the Crystal Onyx. Since Victory Road isn't a good spot for the other two, I use the Pokemon Mansion instead. It takes a further 26 minutes to get Ponyta to level 40 to evolve it into a Rapidash. Rapidash is a good upgrade over Ponyta, swapped its cuteness for coolness. It seems a decent method of creating a Gen 1 Pokemon is to just set animals on fire. I have never bothered to use Rapidash though, as it never felt worth the effort to level a Ponyta so high to get one. It's third behind Dragonair and Rhyhorn for highest evolution level, and I just don't feel it should be. Otherwise, I'm sure I would have put some effort into training a cool Pokemon like this. 8 minutes later, Rhyhorn reaches level 41, and I use the rare candy from Victory Road to evolve it into a Rhydon. That's the evolutions done, but now I have to prepare my team for the league. I alternate between the Mansion and Victory Road depending on the Pokemon I'm focusing on. Half an hour and Fearow becomes the first of my team to reach level 50. 9 minutes later and Blastoise joins it. The third one is Tauros 40 minutes later, 12 minutes later for Mew, and 2 minutes later it's Weezing, who I use for TM to teach Fire Blast over Smokescreen. That just leaves Electrode, who takes a further 9 minutes turning down Explosion, and now my team is ready. And now Red. I first spend all my money on Game Corner coins in case I lose against the Elite Four and a chunk of it gets taken. It takes about 25 minutes to get the Kabuto traded from Blue to level 40 to evolve the Kabutops. The Ponyta reaches the same level 2 minutes later after that and evolves. It takes 27 minutes for something else to happen when Charizard reaches level 46 and learns Flamethrower for getting Ember. 38 minutes later, Alakazam is the first to reach level 50. Charizard is next 9 minutes later. 13 minutes later for Kingler, with Primate being 3 minutes later. Then 10 minutes later for Snorlax, and finally Pidgeot 2 minutes later. That just leaves Yellow's preparation. Once again I start by spending all my money on Game Corner coins. I still have a Ponyta to evolve, but this time I have the Omanyte from Red and the extra Koffing I traded over. Once again I taught Omanyte Surf to give it a good move for leveling. 14 minutes into the grind, my Dragonair reaches level 46, and so I use all 9 rare candies I'd saved up to evolve it into a Dragonite. And that is my final Yellow team fully assembled. Pikachu, Dragonite, Dodrio, Dugtrio, Gyarados and Venusaur. 15 minutes later, Koffing reaches level 35 and gets me the last Weezing I need. 8 more minutes and Omanyte reaches level 40 and evolves into an Omastar. Of the 5 fossil Pokemon in Generation 1, Omastar is my least favourite. It's not cool like Kabutops, it's not cute like Kabuto or Omanyte, I just think its face looks dumb. That's all I have to say, as it's not a Pokemon that comes to mind for me often. It then takes another 35 minutes to get Ponyta to level 40 for a Rapidash. I should have just traded really. Doing so many triple speed grinding sessions across all 3 versions left me with some serious pain going up my hand and arm. I can't button match without consequence like I used to. After 12 minutes, Venusaur becomes a second after Dragonite to reach level 50. 18 minutes later and Gyarados becomes the third. Another 17 minutes and Dodrio joins them. 11 minutes and Dugtrio reaches level 47, which lets it learn Earthquake for getting Sand Attack. Pikachu reaches level 50 10 more minutes later. It then takes 6 more for Dugtrio to join them. That's all 3 games prepared for the Elite Four. But first we have one last trading session. Blue and Yellow trade Omastar and Kabutops. Blue then sends the Omastar to Red. That leaves Blue with 150 Pokemon, Red with 149, and Yellow with 148. Now it's time. I have to face all of the Pokemon League's Elite Four back to back without losing. So I go in and meet with the first member, Lorelei, who uses mainly Ice types. She starts with a level 54 Dugong. Thankfully most Gen 1 Ice types are also Water, so Electrode goes out first. Dugong goes down in 2 Thunderbolts. Next is a level 53 Cloyster that is defeated in 1 Thunderbolt. Level 54 Slowbro next, and I critical Thunderbolt it again and it goes down in 1. Jynx is next, the first one that isn't Water. Luckily the second Thunderbolt crits and takes it down, getting Electrode to level 51. Finally a level 56 Lapras that loses half health, but then it reduces Electrode to 5 HP and freezes it with Blizzard. It goes down and I have Mew finish the job with 2 Psychics. First time reaching the Elite Four as a kid, I just could not defeat Lorelei since my only viable Pokemon was a level 51 Dugtrio, and I never leveled it up enough before my classmate's brother saved over that save. I have some Max Revive saved up so Electrode is fine, and I go into the next room. This one contains Bruno, the fighting master and by far the biggest pushover of the Elite Four. He starts with a level 53 Onix which wastes a turn on Harden and gets taken down by Bubble Beam. A level 55 Hitmonchan is next and can't survive a Drill Peck from Fearow. A level 55 Hitmonlee comes out and the exact same thing happens. He has a second Onix at level 56 but Blastoise deals with that. Finally, a level 58 Machamp becomes Bruno's first Pokemon to survive a single attack from me, being down from 2 instead. I don't think I've ever lost to Bruno, even as a kid who didn't know what I was doing. Moving into the next room, and my third opponent is the Poison Master Agatha. She knew Professor Oak back when they were both young and hungry to get stronger, but now he's interested in the Pokédex, she's lost respect for him. She starts with a level 56 Gengar that Mew takes down in 2 Psychics. A level 56 Golbat is next, and I come so close to finishing it in 1 attack. It confuses Mew and wastes several turns with more confusion attacks while Mew batters itself, and when it wears off, Mew misses and Agatha swaps it out for a level 55 Haunter. 2 more Psychics bring it down. The Golbat comes out, and to save the Psychic PP, I Psywave it to death, remembering that Psywave is actually shit, and Psybeam was the one I remember being better. Mew also reaches level 51. A level 58 Arbok comes out next and goes down to 1 Psychic, and finally a second Gengar at level 60. 2 Psychics, but Mew gets poisoned between them. I still won though. Agatha understands what Oak sees in me and sends me on. My full restore Mew and its Psychic first. To build up tension for the final opponent, we get this moment where you automatically walk along this long corridor. As a kid, it worked. My final opponent is the Elite Four leader and Dragon Master, Lance. If you haven't spent the hours catching and grinding a Dratini, there's a good chance you haven't even seen any dragons yet before battling him. He starts with a level 58 Gyarados that goes down from 1 Electrode Thunderbolt thanks to its 4 times weakness. A level 56 Dragonair is next, and 1 Blizzard from Mew defeats that too, getting Mew to level 52. A second Dragonair at the same level comes next, and it goes the same way. A level 60 Aerodactyl comes forth, and it even gets to attack first, but 1 surf is enough. Finally, his ace, a level 62 Dragonite. Despite the 10 level difference, Mew gets to move first and lands a critical Blizzard to bring him down, and I have defeated the entire Elite Four. He says I am now the Pokemon League champion, or I would be if another hadn't already come by earlier and achieved the title himself. Of course, it's Blue. So I go on ahead to face him one last time. He brags about how far he's travelled and his team building skills and declares himself the best trainer in the world. Blue gains a new sprite for this last battle, and to make things more dramatic, attack animations are always switched on for this one. He starts with the Pidgeot he's had since it was a Pidgey when we first battled him on Route 22, now at level 61. It wastes a turn on Mirror Move while I switch to Electrode, and it manages to survive the Thunderbolt just about. The second one finishes it off though. Next is the Alakazam he's had as an Abra since Cerulean City at level 59. I tried Tauros and reduce it to red health with a single critical stomp. Alakazam uses Recover, but that leaves it with enough health that a single crit defeats it. The Rhyhorn he first used in our last battle is now a level 61 Rhydon, but Blastoise's Bubble Beam is just too good and one-shots it. The Gyarados he's had since Pokemon Tower is next, and also level 61, but Electrode doesn't care, and it also goes down in 1. Also from the Pokemon Tower back when it was a Growlithe, Arcanine is his 5th Pokemon at level 63. It hits first and can even survive a super effective Blastoise Bubble Beam. It wastes its next turn on Leer, letting me crit Surf to take it out and get Blastoise to level 51. That just leaves his starter Venusaur, raised from level 5 to level 65. And after years of neglecting the Spearow line, I let Fearow take the last one. One Drill Peck takes half of its health and the Venusaur wastes its turn charging Solar Beam, letting this Pokemon 15 levels below defeat it without taking any damage, reaching level 51. Blue is in complete disbelief that his reign as champion has been cut so short. He concedes and admits that I am now the champion, and to make things more humiliating, Professor Oak shows up that moment. He gives me so much praise and tears into Blue, saying he set off as soon as he heard Blue was champion and now he's already lost. And he tells him exactly why he's a failure. Yeah, get fucked you cocky little shit, he's my granddad now. Oak then takes me into the Hall of Fame to register me and the team I won the league with. I get to see a cool little show of these 6 Pokemon that got me here. Well, 5 Pokemon and Weezing, who kind of arrived too late to the team to make a difference and didn't face a single Elite Four Pokemon. Then the credits start. But first we have 2 more Elite Four runs to complete, starting with Red. Starting with Lorelei, Snorlax paralyses her Dugong with Thunder and then headbutts it out. Thunder takes out the Cloyster in 1, but then her Slowbro takes 3 Thunders, a Headbutt and 2 Body Slams. Jinx is brought down from 2 Body Slams, but then the Lapras defeats Snorlax with 2 Blizzards after taking a Thunder and a Body Slam. So I have Alakazam finish it with a few Psybeams. Revive Snorlax and Bruno is next. Kingler Bubble Beams the Onix, then Hitmonchan takes 3 wing attacks from Pidgeot to defeat. Hitmonlee takes 2 wing attacks and a quick attack. Kingler comes back for the second Onix and it just takes 1 Bubble Beam again. For the Machamp I send out Alakazam and Psychic it. Now for Agatha. Alakazam Psychics the first Gengar but falls asleep, then after waking finishes it with Psybeam, reaching level 51. I almost take out the Golbat with Psybeam, but a critical wing attack also nearly finishes Alakazam. I take out Golbat and with the Haunter I actually get away with using Recover. Psychic one-shots it and it criticals and does the same to Arbok. Then the second Gengar just takes 2 more Psychics. For Lance, I forgot to change my team order beforehand, so when I swap to Snorlax, his Gyarados' Hyper Beam criticals and one-shots it. So I try Alakazam and hit it with 2 Psychics, but it Hydro Pumps once to end it. Primeape has to finish it with Karate Chop. Kingler's Blizzard isn't as good as Mew's, so it takes an extra Crab Hammer to bring down Dragonair. The second one avoids the first Blizzard but gets frozen by the second, letting me finish it easily too. Aerodactyl loses more than half health to Bubble Beam, but it confuses Kingler and hits a devastating takedown, resulting in it fainting soon after. I don't have many good options and try Primeape with Karate Chops, but Lance uses a Hyper Potion and takes it down. Then with its Confuse Ray, Charizard and Pidgeot quickly fall too, and I black out for the first time in this red playthrough. On the way back to Lance, Snorlax reaches level 51 against Lorelei and Alakazam reaches level 52. But some horrendous luck has me with just Charizard by Agatha, and while it reaches level 51, it can't do it alone. I'm definitely glad I put all my money into Game Corner coins now. That sounds like a weird crypto thing. Round 3, and Kingler reaches level 51 against Lorelei, and Alakazam reaches level 53. Pidgeot reaches level 51 against Bruno. Alakazam reaches level 55 against Agatha. Then for Lance, simply remembering to have Snorlax first so it can defeat Gyarados with Thunder works wonders. Kingler gets 2 critical blizzards in a row against the Dragonairs and even crit Bubble Beams Aerodactyl, leaving Lance too busy healing to fight, so it goes down and gets Kingler to level 52. Then 2 blizzards defeat the Dragonite. That just leaves Blue. For his Pidgeot I start with Snorlax and Thunder again while Pidgeot wastes a turn on Whirlwind. I manage to hit the 2 in a row and finish it, getting Snorlax to level 52. His Alakazam is next and I try Charizard. Flamethrower isn't great, so I go for Slash, which crits and leaves it with the tiniest health. He heals, so I just keep throwing out slashes, almost fainting but winning the damage race. Kingler comes back for the Rhydon and surfs it away in 1. It then stays around and does a lot to Arcanine, being brought down by its powerful takedown. Primeape finishes the job with some Karate Chops when Arcanine wastes a turn on Roar. I send out Alakazam against his level 63 Exeggutor. I forget Exeggutor is also Psychic and switch back to Primeape. An endless back and forth of Hypnosis and Karate Chop occurs until Exeggutor falls without damaging Primeape. Then finally for his level 65 Blastoise I send Alakazam back out and just keep throwing out Psychics until it's done. The same ending happens and I register my red team in the Hall of Fame. This team wasn't as great as the one in blue, more a random collection of Pokemon I like. Really, Kingler and Alakazam carried this team. Just yellow now. All the Elite Four have the same Pokemon and levels, but their moves have been changed to make them tougher. Starting with Lorelei, 2 Thunderbolts from Pikachu are enough for the Dugong, then just 1 for the Cloyster and 2 for the Slowbro. But then Jinx takes out Pikachu with a critical Ice Punch, so I have Gyarados finish it with some bites. I try a couple bites on Lapras but switch to Venusaur begging it doesn't use an ice move, but it uses Blizzard. But Venusaur barely survives, but Razor Leaf leaves it with some health, but Lorelei uses the next turn on a Super Potion so I can finish for Lapras. I revive Pikachu and take on Bruno. Gyarados surfs the Onix away and then Dodrio's Drill Peck takes out Hitmonchan and Hitmonlee. Gyarados takes out the other Onix and Dodrio's Drill Peck defeats the Machamp in 2. For Agatha, I have Dugtrio. Earthquake takes out the first Gengar in 1, and then have to use a few slashes for Golbat. Haunter falls to 1 Earthquake, Arbok falls to 1 Earthquake, and Dugtrio reaches level 51. Then the second Gengar also falls to 1 Earthquake. Sweeping an Elite Four member with just a Dugtrio in yellow over 2 decades after that first attempt felt very cathartic. Lance next. Pikachu leaves the Gyarados with red health, but gets wiped out from 1 Hyper Beam, so Venusaur gets the last hit. I realise I have no ice moves for the dragons, so I just keep relying on Razor Leaf's criticals for the Dragonair. Lance heals, so Venusaur falls when it reaches red health again, so I have Dragonite finish it. I get 2 Surfs in the second one and Dragonite falls to 2 Ice Beams. I have Dugtrio finish it with Earthquake. Gyarados is used against Aerodactyl, defeating it with 1 Surf. Then for his Dragonite, I forget it's part flying and lose Dugtrio when an Earthquake is ineffective. Thunder takes out Gyarados, and Dodrio manages to reduce Dragonite to the red, but I still get my first blackout of yellow. On the way back, against Lorelei, Pikachu reaches level 51 as does Dodrio. Against Bruno, Gyarados reaches level 51. Against Agatha, Dugtrio reaches level 52. Pikachu still falls against Gyarados, but Dodrio takes it down to reach level 52. Dugtrio's Earthquakes against the Dragonairs get it to level 53. Aerodactyl goes down the same, but with his Dragonite, I have mine paralyze it. I slam, but a Blizzard comes out and I lose it. But then Dodrio gets great luck and finishes it off with 2 Drill Pecks. Since I have no revives left, I just have Gyarados, Dodrio, Venusaur, and an almost KO Dugtrio for blue. First, his level 61 Sandslash that is destroyed by Surf. For his level 59 Alakazam, I try Dodrio. They both trade attacks and get each other down to red health. Since I know Blue will heal, I get another Drill Peck, but he doesn't and I go first this time to take it down. I keep it out for the level 61 Exeggutor and take the chance to use a Max Potion. Since Barrage isn't that great, I also go and heal Dugtrio. 2 Drill Pecks defeat it and get Dodrio to level 53. Venusaur comes out for the level 61 Cloyster and I pray I go first, and I do. But Razor Leaf just barely fails to defeat it, but Venusaur survives the resulting Ice Beam and finishes it off next turn, reaching level 51. For the level 63 Ninetales, I use Gyarados and ignore the confusion it gives me 2 turns in a row to take it down with Surfs. That just leaves his starter Jolteon at level 65. So Dugtrio comes out and gets me the win with a single Earthquake. Blue is a loser once more, and I register this team in the Hall of Fame. Of course, we're not done just yet. With myself as champion, I can return to Cerulean City and see that the guy who doesn't actually have an afro isn't blocking the cave entrance, so I can go inside. Back then, this was called the Unknown Dungeon, and it's filled with high-level rare Pokemon and the last one we need to catch. I start by going north, ignoring the ladder and surfing. I follow the water all the way north, west and south, skipping 2 more ladders, grabbing 2 items on the way. When out of the water, I inspect the bottom left rock in the middle for a hidden item, and then I go up the ladder here. I'll get the item I skipped later. The first item is a Max Elixir, the second is a Full Restore, and the third one, hidden in the rock, is a rare candy I give to Blastoise just to make room in my inventory. It finally learns Hydro Pump and I forget the long obsolete Water Gun for it. I also give 3 of my PP ups to Hydro Pump as much as it will allow me to increase its PP from 5 to 8, and I give my remaining 2 to Mew Psychic to make more room. In this maze I go northeast to reach the first fork, from which I follow it west until I can go straight south to the first item. I then follow the path west, north and east to a ladder back down to floor 1. It's there I can grab the item I missed and go down the second ladder I skipped to end up in the northeast corner. I then go back the way I came. The first item on this floor is a Full Restore, and the one I missed on floor 1 is a Nugget. The second item is another PP up that goes to Mew Psychic. Then back to floor 1. South of the first ladder I use, I go all the way west and north into another back to floor 2. From this ladder I go east, past 1 gap south and take the second all the way. I move west, taking the first detour north for this floor's last item. Then back and all the way west, all the way north, east a bit, then north and follow the path to another ladder back to floor 1. The item here is an Ultra Ball. Back on floor 1 I just follow the path north a bit to reach the ladder down to floor B1. From the ladder I go east, down the steps and east some more and north to reach the first item. Then back down and all the way west and south, then northeast where I can grab the second item. South from there I get surfing all the way northeast where in the northeast corner I can inspect the bottom right rock for a hidden item. Then it's just 1 more surf south to reach the final Pokemon I need. The first item is a Max Revive, the second an Ultra Ball, the hidden one in the rocks another Ultra Ball, and finally I reach that Pokemon, a level 70 Mewtwo. Of course I'm just using the Master Ball on this. Mewtwo is a very cool Pokemon and makes for a fitting final reward. The fact that it looks more like an alien than the other 150 originals really sets it apart, to show how unnatural it was compared to the rest of them. It made a good first movie villain, being completely unstoppable so it couldn't be overpowered, but basically being a newborn so he stopped by being taught not to be a dickhead. I will say that this sprite of Mewtwo from Red and Blue is my favourite look for it. I really like the hunch caused by the overly long arms that make it look more unnatural and powerful. Still my favourite of this genre of legendary. That's all in this place, so I can leave. But first, with Red I have to stop by Celadon and use my Elite Four winnings to buy the remaining coins I need to get a Porygon. That just leaves the Unknown Dungeon and Mewtwo. On floor 1 I get the Max Elixir, the Full Restore and the hidden rare candy that goes to Charizard. On floor 2 I get the Full Restore, then the Nugget on floor 1, PP up on floor 2, which I use all on Charizard's Fire Blast and Alakazam's Psychic, and the Ultra Ball. Floor B1 I get the Max Revive, the Ultra Ball, the hidden Ultra Ball, and Master Ball Mewtwo, getting me all 151 Pokemon in a second game. And now for Yellow, where I once again start with getting Porygon. But this game is still missing 2 Pokemon, the other one is still in the Unknown Dungeon though. In Yellow this place has a new layout. I start by surfing all the way west, taking a detour north for an item halfway. At the end I go north and up into floor 2. The item is a Max Elixir. Floor 2 is still amazing this version. I go all the way east first for the first item, then south on the way back, east, north as far as I can, south and west, inspecting this one rock for my second item, then north for the third. Back out and north, and I follow the path east, south, east and north all the way back to floor 1. The first item is an Ultra Ball, the hidden one a PP up, and the third a Max Revive. On floor 1, I start by surfing south to the first item, then come back and inspect this rock to the west for a hidden one. The third item is to the north, and then I follow the path south to the ladder back to floor 2. The first item is a rare candy I give to Pikachu, the hidden one a PP up, and the third an Ultra Ball. Back to floor 2 once again. I go north and all the way east and south for another item, then back a bit and take the lower path which goes all the way south and all the way north, back to floor 1. The item is a full restore. No need to map floor 1 again, I just follow the straightforward path west and go back to floor 2 yet again. Last time here, I go south and all the way west through the gap, then south for this floor's last item and north back to floor 1. That last item being a rare candy for Pikachu. Then back on floor 1 is just a bit north to the basement floor. I follow the winding path north and all the way east to the first item. I then go south all the way where the most southern piece of rubble hides an item before I get surfing. Going west takes me to 2 more items. Then I go northeast all the way and into the corner for the final item here. Then the winding path south takes me to Mewtwo. The first item is a Max Ether, the hidden one a PP up, the third and fourth being a Max Revive and Ultra Ball, with another Ultra Ball being the last one. Mewtwo's in view, but I want it to be the last one I catch and I'm still missing one. So I run in place for a few minutes until I find a Lickitung, which was hidden all the way back in the post game for some reason. With it caught, I can also Master Ball Mewtwo, getting all 151. I then immediately trade that Lickitung I caught for the Dugtrio on Route 11 named Gurio. Really not worth the wait and effort considering you can catch them right next door far earlier, but that's all the trades done on all 3 versions as well. And with all 151 Pokemon caught, I return to the developer's office in Celadon City like the director told me to, and in return I get my useless diploma in blue, red and yellow. I also stop by Professor Oak and show my completed Pokédex to him, and I would have loved for that to be it, the perfect place to end it. But while I was writing the script for part 1, I noticed I missed an item in Mount Moon. This one rock in this one room was hiding an ether, so I get it in blue, red and yellow, and I thought that was the end. But while writing the script for part 2, I noticed I missed an item in Vermilion City. While surfing, I can inspect the back left of this building for a Max Ether, which completes blue and red. But as you can see, I'm still not done with yellow even after grabbing it. Because while writing the script for part 3, I noticed I missed 2 trainers. First is this junior trainer on Route 13, and then this biker on Route 14. With those 2 taken down, yellow is complete and I finally finished Pokemon Red, Blue and Yellow versions. Complete Pokédex, all trainers and one-time encounters dealt with, every item obtained in all 3 versions. First off, this was the most difficult project I've done for this channel. Final Fantasy IV took longer, but this had me juggling 3 versions of an RPG at once, in playing and writing, and has caused me actual physical distress both playing all 3 back to back at triple speed, and the sheer amount of stuff I've had to write. If there's one thing I've learned from this experience, it's to not rigidly decide beforehand how many parts a game will need to be covered in. Maybe splitting it into 5 or 6 would have made things more manageable, but I went and said 4 all the way back in the first video and locked it in. Luckily, that itself was a last minute change. Originally I thought I'd be able to cover it in just 3, but I still really love this game. I'd say, despite not liking Victory Road myself, it's just about perfectly paced. You can get going through the game and not get impatient or bored at a part that drags on forever. Yes, it isn't as refined as later games and there are glitches, but it doesn't affect the base experience to me apart from some much missed quality of life improvements. And as for the glitches, most of them you have to go out of your way to trigger, so you'd never see the bad ones anyway unless you wanted to. It's unbalanced, yes, but I don't do the multiplayer so I don't care much and it doesn't affect the single player experience that much, which is what matters to me and the rankings are based on my feelings alone. One thing I feel it does better than any other game I've played in the series is the sense of adventure on your own. That feeling of just wandering around and stumbling into things. You always wander into the plot, it doesn't find you. But it also doesn't have the frustration of getting lost like older RPGs. Later games have you more involved in the plot or have a load of friends constantly interrupting your journey, which in general aren't bad things, but if you're not in the mood for that, then Gen 1 is the best place to avoid it. It still has my favourite overall batch of Pokemon, as you could probably tell from how many I praised, along with a soundtrack that, while not the best in the series, is instantly memorable. This game will currently be ranked 2nd behind Mortal Kombat 2. It's funny, if this video was made 15 years ago, this game would most likely be ranked 1st currently, but tastes and opinions do shift over time. However, this is not my favourite Pokemon generation. Of the main games I've played from 1 to 5, not counting the remakes, Right now I'd rank this in the middle, so there are 2 generations I like more than this and 2 I like less. Hopefully one day I can get past all the barriers keeping me from covering the generations past this one and you'll be able to see which ones are which.